that. Look at that. Nice and tidy. Everybody's happy. We all fit good in there. Yeah. That's pretty cool. That's great. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the IzzyFab YouTube channel. Last go around, I asked you guys if you wanted to see wastegates next or downpipe, and immediately the first two comments were wastegates. So here we are. We're going to do wastegates on this guy. I have two brand new TurboSmart ProGate 50s to go on here, and like I've said 100 times already, this is a true divided setup, so each bank of cylinders is 100% divided, even through the housing of the turbo. And with that, that means that you need to regulate both sides. Otherwise, you know, you could have boost creep or anything like that. So some guys tie the two together through one wastegate, but that kind of defeats the purpose of the true divided setup in a roundabout sort of manner. So I've got two wastegates, one for each side, and I am going to choose to mount them somewhere in this vicinity, and then we'll have two screamer pipes slash dump pipes, whatever you want to call them, come through the hole in the nose of the bumper. And yeah, so to do this, I'm going to have to put the cooling stack, radiator bracket, whatever you want to call it, back in. And I'm also going to have to bring in my passenger fender so that I can fit the fender, the rad saddle, and the inner fender and make these fit with minimal trimming. I'm going to have to be able to crank the steering all the way to the right, all the way to the left, so that, you know, I don't build this out here and if this wheel is cranked to the left and hits a bump or whatever, I don't want to jam anything into the wastegates. And I also don't want to just have them kind of out in the middle of nowhere unnecessarily. So I got to bring the fender out. I haven't done that yet. We're going to get that on. Same thing again, like I said, I'm going to get this rad saddle on. And then hopefully we'll be able to also plan our downpipe spacing that way, and potentially an overflow bottle of some type for the cooling system. I don't know if it's going to wind up over there or if it's going to wind up over on this side where the factory fuse block used to be, because we are going to ditch the fuse block from the engine bay. For the time being, anyway, I got to get this fender on. I'll probably bring both of them out and kind of set it all up again so I can measure for the available space left. This side is going to be really empty looking now that there's no fuse block or anything like that over there. So I might try to get the overflow bottle over there off the radiator. And again, there's no rad cap on the radiator currently. You guys saw me get rid of that, so it actually might work out really well that it winds up over there, because I'll be able to feed it into the rad, which is favoring that side already anyway. So there's a bunch of rambling about nothing. That's how my brain works. I'm going to go get fenders. Hello, friends. We have a fender mounted. I ran home last night and grabbed this, brought it back out because I am without a truck currently. I just have the Volkswagen, so brought this out because I couldn't bring it out at the same time with the dogs. That thing and the other one, wherever he is. So I brought this out last night. I just threw a single bolt on it quick, and I've been here now for several hours trying to plan how I'm going to fixture these two guys and how I'm going to place them. I put this wheel, or the steering in general, at full lock this way so that we could make sure that I have lots of clearance for the wastegates. So I'm going to try and figure out how to set this camera up so that you guys can see what I got going on here. All right, so I knocked the back half of the turbo off after I kind of gave myself a bit of space to figure out my air gap for my wastegates. What I did was, I'm obviously using these two holes, and then these are just 3-inch exhaust hangers that we have, and I just tacked them to the flanges. I've already got the Sharpie lines on there. So basically what we're going to do is something like this. These might rotate a little bit. I am going to now pull this crossover setup off, and I will probably tack these hangers to the flange just to get the locations right. These little aluminum guys are actually our mock-up snapper grommets that you guys have seen before that we hung the exhausts and stuff with, the little black grommets. So they actually are intended to have a bit of an air gap, so I can't fully tighten them. So I'm going to have to put a tack, which is fine. That's not the end of the world. A single tack will go a long way, and I'll be able to polish it out, no problem. This is basically what we're going to shoot for. And if I can figure out a way to get these, you know, kind of wherever they need to be, then I'll be able to make both my screamer pipes from there. I'll be able to, with these in place, make our joints from our hot side up into these flanges. And then I'll be able to do it all on the bench, which is the important part, because it'll be much easier than me kneeling down trying to fit a piece of tube. I'm going to pull a hot side out and get these tacked into place and start coping tube, I guess. I went ahead and put a single tack each on those exhaust hangers that are being used as jigs right now. And I came back, I bolted these guys on. That header's off, doesn't really matter right now. I just wanted to get a kind of a good final fit up. It's hard to see in the video, but there's a ton of space between the tire and the wastegate. It looks like a fair bit right now, but there is actually quite a bit. And realistically, if I'm full lock and I hit a bump big enough to touch that, we got bigger problems, because this truck is not all the way down right now, and I'm going to lunch a fender long before I hit those wastegates. So that's where they're going to live. They're going to be rotated slightly, but the nice thing about these Turbo Smart wastegates is I can clock the heads the same. And the reason for them being slightly turned a little bit is so that I can keep these screamer pipes nice and tight together, rather than having them, you know, spaced way out. These are titanium screamer pipes, again from Weld Rebel, Renee, same dude I got all the other stuff from. He's been helping out a bunch on this. Pretty short path of screamer pipes going through now. I think that's enough for me tonight. Thursday night update for you guys. I got one of the wastegate mounts done. Nice little weld in there, nice transition, all back purged and everything. I think this is the harder of the two just because it's on an elbow, and also this one I'm gonna tie into this tube down here, so it should just be a nice straight cope, pretty easy. I'm gonna fit this back on the truck for tonight, and then I'll probably bang out the other one tonight. And by tonight, of course, I mean tomorrow. It's now 10 o'clock. I'm clearly exhausted because I'm not even speaking English. So yeah, I'm gonna toss this back on the truck quick, and we'll throw the header back on, and I'm gonna call it a night. Hello everyone, and welcome to another Friday evening of working on this thing. Last night we did the even side wastegate. Tonight we're gonna do the odd. I kinda already got a jump start. Mostly because coping tube is not my forte, but this actually turned out really good. Ignore this 45-degree fitting. It's basically in there just so I get some kind of spatial footprint for a dash 12 fitting. What we got going on here is, this is gonna come in here and basically fit up like that. We're gonna be able to duck an extended dash 12 fitting down and then kick a line over. I did manage to find some 3/4 inch stainless upstairs in our steel pile, stainless pile, whatever you want to call it. So we obviously ordered that for some type of previous project. So what I'm thinking I'm going to do is I'm going to make a short flex hose off of the turbo here, get it down under that screamer pipe adapter dewey as best I can. And then I'm going to actually make a hard line that bolts to the chassis under, hopefully, the motor mount, and goes over here, and then we'll do another small flex hose off of that line into the oil pan. And the reason for that is, number one, I have a better chance of getting that on some type of downslope to the pan. Number two, that's not gonna melt. I've had it in the past, actually my last setup, where I did one burnout in particular that was a bit excessive, and it never burnt through it, but it did melt the fabric sheathing on it. So I'm gonna try and avoid that this time. We're gonna run a hard line. And that also makes it much easier if I ever have to disassemble this. I don't have to wiggle a flex hose out of there that's 27 feet long, I can just undo either the piece at the pan or undo the piece here or both and leave that hard line in the chassis should I need to service anything. So I'm gonna go ahead, pull off this hot side one more time. I have a marker line on the crossover. Pull this off, kind of fit and tack everything, bring it back over, fit it one more time, make sure it's all gonna be good. And then we'll pull this off. I'll cut out the crossover pipe, we'll weld this bugger on, and we have wastegates forever, for good, for done, thank God. All right, it's tacked on. I got the brace removed. Got a pretty nice fit up there. Flanges are pretty square. Might throw one more tack just on that joint just to make sure that everything's gonna stay there, but now we can put this back on the truck, put the turbo housing on, because I've never had the turbo housing on with both of the wastegates yet. My specific housing, the footprint is the biggest part, so the casting actually comes in, there's lots of room here, even without the casting, so I should have no issue. But yeah, I'm gonna throw one more tack on that. We'll throw it back on the truck. I'm just gonna make sure everything fits perfectly before I make that final. Then we'll knock that off, cut the hole, and weld it for good. All right, good news. Everybody fits. Everybody looks good. This turbo drain is gonna be interesting, but I have a pretty solid plan, I think. Worst case scenario, if we have to zigzag this little drain, we can do that. That's not the end of the world. It is gonna be a lot of work to make it function properly, but I'd rather this all look good and tidy and have to fart around with that a whole lot more than I should have to. But yeah, let me grab the turbo blanket as the last, hurrah. And then we'll pull it off and get this hot side done. I need to put my back pressure doodads on as well. Don't let me forget to do that, please. Look at that. Look at that. Nice and tidy. Everybody's happy. We all fit good in there. Yeah. That's pretty cool. That's great. All right, one more test. We're gonna turn the steering wheel. I know we already did that, but we're gonna do it again with the, whoa, here. I'm gonna move this $40 fitting before I absolutely destroy it. And maybe these $10,000 elbows. Okay, here we go. Tell me if it hits. That's full lock, and that's steering locked. Look at all the room. Yeah, so the suspension, looking at it eyeball wise, if the suspension moves from there to there, it'll touch, and it has to be a full lock. Otherwise, we're totally in the clear, and that might even be my eyeballs lying to me. But either way, if somehow I'm at full lock and that touches, something is very wrong. I feel like if that's happening, that's probably not our biggest problem. All right, let's pull this off for, I guess, technically the last time. I'm gonna lay out my positions for my back pressure bungs now, and I'm gonna add them as well. Freaking tired of pulling this on and off, so all right, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, and everybody in between, we have a 100% completed turbo hot side. Makes me very, very happy. This transition is just absolutely phenomenal. We got our two 1/8 MPT bungs in here, just waiting for this one to cool. Let me tell you why I put them right there. So this is facing in towards the engine bay. So I've got these guys here. Now, normally you guys know that I would run a black aluminum vibrant fitting adapter, but being that these are in what I would call extreme temperature, I have these nickel plated steel ones that I'm going to use for a couple reasons. Number one, I'm worried about the aluminum losing its bite potentially in the stainless and them getting launched out. Number two is black anodizing. I'm sure you guys have seen stuff that sits out in the sun far too long and it turns purple or whatever color. That doesn't really matter on this because it's pretty much hidden, but it's another small reason. The big one is I'm worried about the longevity of the small aluminum fitting. So I'm going to run these pointed this way with the hopes that the stainless line I make, I can plan it with a coil in it that goes to that little sensor down here on the frame rail. We coil them so that it dissipates a bunch of the heat. I'm going to point these both in the same direction, and I'm hoping that in my coil I can use that as a bit of a flex, and I'm going to run it on this fitting primarily, and should we have to switch over to this fitting, all I have to do is undo the line and take this cap off. Again, I'm not using this straight, it'll be a 90, but I'm going to run this cap on one of these. They'll both be pointed down, and I should, theoretically, just be able to undo this line and swap it to here. That's my hope. So I'm going to let this cool down for a couple minutes. We'll put these fittings in, and I will install this on the truck. I want to say for good, but it's not going to be, because as of next Friday, a week today, I have to take this friggin' thing apart completely so that I can get the chassis dry ice blasted finally. And that's going to be a job. But all this stuff is going to be gone, and the chassis is going to be clean, and it'll be worth it, and we can start putting the motor together for good. All right, kiddies, we got the hot side back on for quote-unquote good. On to screamer pipes. Oh, I do need to show you this. I am an absolute idiot, and I'm sure somebody's caught it already, but my two 1/8 MPT fittings, I cannot spin 290s in there, which is a frickin' no-duh situation. But this is why you don't build things and not test to fit them, and also why you shouldn't do things 24 hours a day forever. So yeah, not a big issue. We can deal with that a little differently. Screamer pipes, I'm probably going to do tomorrow. I kind of roughly tacked one together. This is titanium. Tried something different with the finishing of it. I don't know how I feel about it. But anyway, that sits in there like so. Unfortunately, the way that I have these angles though, it is just resting against the frame rail when it's parallel and square. I'm going to have to adjust these angles a little bit. This is a 45 here, and this is, I don't know, like a 75 or something. I am thinking for currently, right now, we're going to do just straight down. I don't know. I'd like to go out the bumper, but I'm torn, so I may actually leave these for a little while. Or I might just make them where they go straight down, because if they're straight down, I can always cut them up here and add an elbow to then head out the bumper. So I probably will actually do that, because the main sections to get them down pointing parallel, that's going to be the same either way. So I do remember from way back in the day when my old setup was on here and the old turbo sat way higher and the single wastegate was way higher, it did kind of 90 vertical down for quite a while before it came out the bumper. So this is kind of the same idea, except that I would obviously have two coming out and I would have them stacked vertically. It's almost midnight. It's Friday night. I'm going to go home. I got to be back here first thing tomorrow. So probably do screamer pipes tomorrow. Knock them out. Pretty happy with how the wastegates turned out. Super, super happy with everything. Again, ignore that oil drain fitting. That's not going to be a final part. Yeah, so we'll see you tomorrow. We'll finish off this video with these screamer pipes. They shouldn't take a whole lot of time. Then we'll move on to something else. Hello everybody, welcome back. Happy Saturday. I went ahead this morning and adjusted the angle on this guy, like I said, and I got it all welded out with a nice back purge. Titanium is a lot of fun to weld. It is not for the faint of heart though. But anyway, so I'm gonna blast this on and we'll start making the other one. All right, so I went ahead and started tacking up the second one, and I got a pretty decent rough idea of what it's gonna look like. What I'm going to do is I'm gonna knock this piece out and extend it so that it gets rid of some of this gap. These are a little tighter together. And I also, I don't know if you can tell or not, I need to spin this. Like this little 45 here, I need to rotate it just ever so slightly counterclockwise so that they're parallel. And then I obviously need to shorten up this one a touch. And yeah, hopefully by extending this here, this sight line is a little better. It's not bad, I don't hate it, but tightening it up I think is gonna make a world of difference. All right, so I extended this about 3/4 of an inch. I got that sight line nice now. But I'm actually going to extend the straight piece here, and then I'm going to cut this one off and extend it straight. I'm just going to leave them straight cut for now. That's going to finish these off, quote unquote, finish these off for the time being until I can really decide if I'm going to go out the bumper, if I'm going to leave them. I may just leave them straight cut. They're going to be, you know, like the bumper basically comes to here and there's an inner wheel well. You're not going to be able to see them at all from the front or the rear or whatever, so I might just leave them straight cut. And if there is, you know, fire come out of them, it'll go straight down instead of kind of bend wherever. That's my thought process. I just cut a longer one here, so I'm going to take this off, weld that on, weld this one out, and then I'll cut that one back off and I'll match them so they're flush on the bottom. Coming along. Should be done today, no problem. Guys, look how cool! They're done. Welded out really nice. They fit really nice. We got a nice even gap all along them. Titanium. So yeah, wastegates are totally done. Makes me super, super happy. Again, we may change the outlets in the future, but for the time being, they look the part, they look killer. If I do wind up taking this thing to Motorama with no front end on it, they look serious. So what's next? I think probably, I'm not sure. This next video after these ones is probably going to be me prepping the truck to get it dry ice blasted. I've got to get all of this shit out, unfortunately. And then probably finish the welding underneath all the rib cage and stuff if I can. Get it in a trailer. I'm buying a new Duramax this week. Not new, but new to me. If you guys have known me for a while, I had a 2005 Duramax a number of years ago, and then I bought the other truck that I had that looked like this. Well, I sold it on Monday because it's 2-wheel drive and a half ton, and I really barely drive it unless I'm pulling a trailer. So back into a Duramax I go. It's super clean. I'll post, you know, some details about it when I get it. But I'm hoping Saturday probably, maybe Sunday morning next week. This thing's going to go in the trailer. I'm going to deliver it Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon, and then Carlo's going to have it all day Monday, maybe Tuesday. I don't really know how long it's going to take, but they're going to have it for, you know, a day or two. And then when it comes back, I'm going to put the torque converter, flex plate, all that shit together for good. The motor can go in. I'm going to wind up having to probably paint the rails and a portion underneath the truck, obviously, where all the raw DOM tube is right now. So the big one is painting the chassis. Next big one is getting the drivetrain in, We'll start gasketing things like the headers. The headers will never have to come off again. Hot side can go on for good. Turbo can go on for good. Water pump can go on for good. All things like that. There's a lot of shit I still need to find homes for yet. I have no idea where I'm going to put the coils. I need to find a home for this guy, which is for my heat exchanger setup for that guy there. So I'm thinking I'm going to draw a bracket that sits off the intercooler itself and kind of floats this guy somewhere around here, because one of the fittings is going to go there and then the other one's going to go way back to the back. But yeah, next video is going to be kind of a bunch of random stuff all tagged in together, and maybe sort of kind of, well, I guess the next one won't be me putting it back together, but the one following that should be us putting things together for good. I'm going to start connecting this brake line, you know, replacing hardware, getting things powder coated in the suspension. I think I've picked a color for some of the hard parts in the engine bay. The titanium is going to be polished. All the stainless is going to stay raw, but all these brackets and the turbo housing and the compressor housing, I mean, and the valve covers and the intake and a bunch of other stuff are all going to get some color. And yeah, so that's going to wrap this one up. Got to get that in the truck too. Anyway, yeah, that's going to wrap this one up. I appreciate you guys watching. Hopefully this was a fun one. I really liked getting this done and out of the way. The hot side is 100% done. That's it. We're finished. I feel really, really good. That feels like a big step. So, yeah. Catch you guys next time.